There's a peculiar heaviness that comes with being truly awake, a quiet burden that sits just behind the eyes, pressing on the mind with subtle insistence. You notice things that others overlook. You hear the half-spoken words in conversations, the silent tension in crowded rooms, the invisible cracks in the smiles people wear like armor. While the world moves on with its routines, its rituals, its endless distractions, your mind lingers in spaces that feel almost sacred yet unbearably isolating. You catch patterns, connections, and contradictions that seem obvious to you, yet to speak them aloud often invites confusion, even discomfort. In this way, consciousness becomes a kind of curse, not because seeing clearly is wrong, but because seeing clearly is rarely shared or understood. From an early age, there are those fleeting moments when you realize that you are awake in a world of slumber. Perhaps it was a quiet morning when the sun had just begun to spill gold across your room, and you noticed the pattern of shadows, the small imperfections in the wallpaper, or the muted hum of life outside your window. While others slept, unaware, your mind refused rest. These mornings are paradoxical, beautiful in their clarity, yet heavy with a sense of being unmoored. There is a sharp awareness of time passing, of the endless cycles repeating outside your perception. And in those moments, you feel the isolation that accompanies insight. There is an unmistakable loneliness to being awake. Most people never notice the intricate patterns of life. They move through their days unbothered by the hidden structures around them. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow the subtle hypocrisies, the fleeting injustices, the small, hidden tragedies that play out daily. Each observation becomes a thread that weaves into a larger tapestry of understanding, a tapestry that few others seem willing or able to see. This knowledge, instead of bringing comfort, often brings unease. You are caught between the joy of perception and the exhaustion of bearing it alone. Curiosity becomes both a gift and a burden. While the restless mind seeks answers, it often finds only more questions. Why do people act as they do when the patterns are so evident? Why does society uphold contradictions with such blind devotion? Why do small injustices slip by unnoticed? And why are profound truths buried beneath layers of distraction? These questions swirl ceaselessly, refusing closure. They are a quiet, persistent pulse in the background of thought, a reminder that awareness demands vigilance, and that with knowledge comes responsibility. Yet, it is not all despair. There are moments when this heightened state reveals subtle beauty that others never see. The curve of a leaf catching sunlight just so, the rhythm of footsteps echoing on a quiet street, the interplay of color and shadow in a city at dusk. All these things are amplified for someone who notices. The awakened mind drinks deeply from details that the world takes for granted. But the intensity of noticing comes with its price. There is always a sense that you are moving through life slightly out of sync with the people around you, observing from a parallel plane where joy and sadness carry deeper textures, where choices and consequences are sharper, more immediate, and often more cruel. It is in this tension that the curse of consciousness becomes evident. Awareness is not simply seeing, it is understanding. And understanding does not always bring peace. You notice not only the beauty, but also the fragility and impermanence of everything around you. A smile can hide sorrow, a casual remark can carry hidden meaning, and what seems trivial to others can weigh heavily on your mind. These observations are not burdens you can set aside. They stay with you, quietly shaping perception, quietly demanding reflection, quietly reminding you that life is richer, more complex, and more delicate than most ever realize. Social interactions become another terrain of challenge. Conversations often feel shallow, a dance of words that skirt around the deeper truths you wish to explore. People speak in routines, in safe stories, in socially approved scripts, and you hear the spaces between those words with acute clarity. You sense the unspoken fears, the insecurities, the hidden desires. You catch the micro-expressions and fleeting gestures that reveal more than spoken language ever could. And yet, when you speak these observations, they are met with confusion, dismissal, or even subtle hostility. Being awake can feel like walking through a room full of people wearing masks, longing to remove them, but unable to convince anyone else to do the same. The world, in its way, is moving too fast for the awakened mind to rest comfortably. There's constant input, constant stimulation, constant motion. You feel the weight of noticing what is overlooked, of feeling what is ignored, of questioning what is accepted without thought. And in this, there's a strange mix of exaltation and fatigue. You are alive to the textures of reality in ways that others are not. But with that vitality comes the relentless echo of awareness, a quiet pressure that never fully dissipates. And yet, amid this weight, there is a subtle reassurance. To be awake is also to be alive, to feel deeply, to notice, to understand, to perceive connections where others see none. These are not flaws. They are marks of a mind capable of navigating layers of existence that remain hidden to most. The burden of awareness is real, but it is entwined with an equally real gift: the capacity for insight, the depth of perception, the clarity of judgment, and the moments of quiet, radiant understanding that the sleeping world will never know. The awakened mind carries its weight. Yes, but it also carries a quiet power. It is a paradoxical life, full of loneliness and wonder, exhaustion and clarity, pain and insight. The key is not to fight it, but to move with it, to acknowledge the burden without being crushed, to find meaning in observation, and to recognize that the curse of awareness is inseparable from the gifts it brings. Life feels heavier when seen fully, yet there's also a rare beauty in that fullness, a richness that is invisible to the unseeing, but unmistakably alive to those who dare to be awake. There is a peculiar energy that takes root in an awake mind, a ceaseless restlessness that moves like a river beneath the surface of thought. It is not simply overthinking, though it often manifests as endless chains of ideas and reflections. It is an awareness that refuses pause, an alertness that sees connections, contradictions, and nuances where others see only flat surfaces. Even in moments that should feel still, the mind stirs. Thoughts arise unbidden, sometimes fleeting and delicate, other times insistent and relentless, pulling attention in multiple directions at once. Sleep comes reluctantly, if at all, and even in quiet mornings, the mind hums with a faint but persistent energy, always noticing, always questioning, always aware. This restlessness is a paradox. It brings life to perception, sharpening attention and creativity, yet also carries an undercurrent of fatigue. There is an exhaustion in noticing patterns others overlook, in perceiving the invisible threads that link moments and people. You see small inconsistencies in behavior, hidden motives behind actions, and subtle shifts in energy that most never detect. Every interaction, every scene, every word is parsed, analyzed, and stored for reflection. To the observer, it might appear as though the mind is simply active, but to the awakened, it is an intricate dance of attention and interpretation that rarely rests, even when the body does. Information itself can be overwhelming. The modern world offers an unending stream of data, experiences, and narratives, all clamoring for attention. Social media, news, conversations, cultural trends, they all pulse at a speed that challenges even the most attentive mind. For someone awake, it is impossible to disengage completely. Each new piece of input becomes a potential revelation, a subtle shift in understanding, or a quiet disturbance that demands reflection. The mind, once restless, becomes restless with purpose, seeking clarity and meaning in the chaos, yet finding only more layers to unravel. In quiet moments, the restlessness becomes more pronounced. Late at night, when the world seems to have paused, the awake mind hums with activity. Thoughts wander from past experiences to future possibilities, circling endlessly, like a bird caught in a room with no open window. You replay conversations in your head, not to relive them, but to analyze the subtle nuances, the things unsaid, the expressions that were fleeting but loaded with meaning. Even in solitude, there is no escape. The mind examines, judges, and questions incessantly, finding connections that are invisible to those around you. This ceaseless movement can feel both exhilarating and exhausting, a reminder that to be awake is to never truly rest. There is a subtle tension between the desire for peace and the inability to achieve it. While part of the mind craves calm, another part resists it, driven by curiosity and a need for understanding. You notice contradictions in your own thoughts, the pull between reflection and action, between observation and participation. You question why the world moves at such a pace without noticing, why routines are so unquestioned, why most people sleep through experiences that you live vividly in every moment. This tension is not easily reconciled. It is the heartbeat of restlessness, a combination of intelligence, perception, and sensitivity that constantly nudges you toward clarity and away from complacency. Yet, within this chaos, there are brief moments of relief. Sometimes, a pattern emerges, a truth becomes clear, and the mind experiences a fleeting sense of order. These glimpses are rare but profound, like a sudden clearing in a storm. You recognize the rhythm of life, the subtle beauty of impermanence, and the delicate balance between presence and reflection. These moments offer a quiet reassurance. The restlessness is not meaningless. It is a mechanism for perception, understanding, and growth. It is both a burden and a guide, a force that keeps the mind alive to the subtle energies of existence. The restless mind also heightens sensitivity to the external world. You notice the way light shifts through a room over the course of minutes, the subtleties in a friend's voice when they're withholding something, the patterns of human behavior that repeat like ancient scripts. Small irritations can become sharp, minor injustices can strike with clarity, and the world feels amplified in both beauty and cruelty. This heightened perception can create discomfort, as everyday life seems filled with minor but persistent disturbances. The mundane becomes complex, the ordinary becomes layered, and the awake mind experiences reality in a depth that is often exhausting. Socially, this restlessness manifests in an acute awareness of others' intentions and limitations. Conversations that feel routine to most people become exercises in subtle decoding. You notice when someone's tone does not match their words, when their body gestures betray hesitation or discomfort, when unspoken dynamics shift the energy of a room. These observations are constant and unavoidable. They inform your actions and reactions, but they also create distance because others are rarely attuned to the same frequencies. This distance is not loneliness alone. It is the recognition that your perception operates on a different plane, one that is both enlightening and isolating. Even so, the restless mind can be a source of immense creativity and insight. Ideas emerge in unexpected ways. Connections between seemingly unrelated events reveal themselves, and intuition sharpens with every observation. Restlessness, when harnessed, becomes a tool rather than a burden, a quiet guide through a world that often moves too quickly for conscious appreciation. The challenge is learning to live with it, to embrace the flow of thought without being consumed, to channel the energy of the mind into understanding and creation rather than exhaustion and despair. The key lies in recognizing the rhythm of the mind's restlessness, allowing it to inform without overwhelming, to illuminate without isolating. Awareness does not need to be a curse. It can become a form of freedom. The mind, ever alert, can serve as a companion rather than a tormentor, a source of insight rather than constant tension. The restless energy that feels heavy can also carry the subtle beauty of life that escapes those who remain asleep. To be awake is to carry both challenge and gift in equal measure, to navigate the turbulence of thought while appreciating its capacity to reveal the depth, complexity, and wonder of existence. There's a strange and quiet paradox in being awake. The more deeply you perceive, the further you often feel from those around you. To notice patterns, motives, and subtle shifts in the world is to experience a clarity that few others share, and clarity can be isolating. You find yourself in a crowd, yet somehow apart, seeing connections and contradictions that others move through blind to their presence. Conversations can feel shallow, humor and small talk repetitive, and the unspoken rules of social interaction exhausting in their simplicity. While others glide through social routines with comfort and ease, you remain alert, critically aware, and slightly removed, wondering why the world rarely pauses to reflect. This isolation is not always obvious, nor is it simply loneliness. It is the recognition that your perception operates on a different wavelength, a plane where meaning runs deeper, stakes feel higher, and subtleties carry weight. Simple greetings can feel inadequate because the layers beneath them are apparent to you. A friend's casual remark may hide anxiety. A compliment may mask insecurity. A smile may conceal conflict. You notice what is unspoken, the silent gaps between words, the subtle cues in body language, and the hidden narratives people unconsciously weave. While most overlook these moments, they become the substance of your reality, adding depth, but also a quiet sense of separation. Isolation grows further because sharing your perceptions is rarely met with understanding. Speak of your observations, your insights, or your interpretations, and others may respond with confusion, dismissal, or polite smiles that mask discomfort. You begin to recognize a pattern. The more awake your mind becomes, the less receptive the world is to what you see. Relationships require energy to navigate, and energy spent explaining the obvious to others often feels futile. This dynamic, subtle but persistent, can intensify feelings of solitude, creating a paradox where the clarity that enriches your life simultaneously separates you from those around you. Yet isolation has its hidden lessons and quiet rewards. In solitude, the mind learns to reflect, to explore its own depths without external interference. Moments of aloneness become fertile ground for insight, creativity, and self-discovery. When no one else can fully understand, you are free to observe, to question, and to explore without constraint. Solitude teaches patience with both life and perception. It allows you to witness patterns, explore ideas, and engage with reality on your own terms. Though it can be lonely, it is also a space where the awake mind flourishes, unencumbered by the need to simplify or explain its perceptions. Still, there's an ache in this isolation. The human desire for connection is strong, and awareness often magnifies the desire rather than diminishing it. Moments when another person briefly aligns with your perception feel rare and profoundly rewarding. A fleeting glance of understanding, a subtle acknowledgement, a conversation that touches beneath the surface, all become moments of deep significance precisely because they are so uncommon. They reveal that connection is possible, even if it is fleeting, and that the awake mind is not condemned to perpetual solitude. The paradox extends to the balance between observation and participation. You see the intricacies of human behavior and the unseen consequences of actions, yet you're often caught between stepping in and observing. Your heightened awareness of complexity brings hesitation, and hesitation can appear as detachment. While others move confidently within the simplified versions of life, your understanding is more nuanced, more layered, more aware of potential outcomes. This awareness, while valuable, can create the impression of distance or disengagement. You find yourself participating selectively, seeking quality over quantity in interaction, preferring depth over superficial engagement. Despite these challenges, isolation cultivates resilience. When you are awake, you learn to navigate life with a keen awareness that few share. You become comfortable with your own company, able to reflect, analyze, and grow without constant external validation. Solitude teaches the art of self-reliance, the strength of quiet observation, and the capacity to find meaning in the unseen or unspoken. It allows you to develop inner resources to build a mental framework capable of supporting insight, creativity, and judgment, even in the absence of understanding from others. The paradox also illuminates the value of selective connection. While superficial relationships may feel inadequate or even draining, rare, genuine connections take on extraordinary significance. Conversations that touch beneath the surface, moments of mutual understanding, and friendships that honor depth rather than distraction become profoundly nourishing. In these instances, isolation is not a curse, but a filter, guiding you toward relationships that align with your perception and values. The awake mind learns to cherish depth, even when it comes at the expense of broad social comfort. There's also a subtle beauty in being awake and alone. Life takes on textures that are invisible to the unseeing. Small moments, a sunrise, a song, a fleeting observation, gain weight and significance because they are noticed, reflected upon, and felt deeply. The isolated mind is not empty. It is rich with perception, imagination, and insight. Solitude sharpens awareness and cultivates a kind of internal clarity that allows the awake person to move through life with subtle purpose and understanding. Even when disconnected from the broader social world, there's a sense of being fully alive in one's own consciousness. Ultimately, the isolation paradox is not a permanent state, but a dynamic tension. Being awake separates and connects simultaneously. It challenges and enriches, isolates and illuminates. The awake mind walks a careful path, aware of its own depth, yet seeking points of resonance with the world. The challenge is to embrace this paradox, to find meaning and beauty in both solitude and connection, and to recognize that isolation, while uncomfortable at times, is inseparable from the heightened clarity that defines being truly awake. Life may feel lonelier, and conversations may seem shallower, but the richness of perception and the rare moments of genuine understanding make the journey uniquely profound. There's a subtle truth about being awake that often goes unnoticed. What feels like a curse carries within it a hidden gift. The restless mind, the ceaseless awareness, and the isolation that comes with perception are not merely burdens. They are tools, waiting to be understood and harnessed. To be awake is to experience life in a heightened state, where details, patterns, and connections are more vivid, more alive, and more meaningful. While the weight of awareness can feel heavy, it also sharpens perception, enhances intuition, and cultivates insight that remains invisible to most. What seems like a curse is, in reality, a rare privilege, a lens through which life reveals its hidden textures and subtle truths. To see what others miss is one of the first gifts of awakening. While people move through life glancing at surfaces, the awake mind notices the imperceptible. A slight hesitation in someone's voice, a fleeting expression across a crowded room, the rhythm of motion in a city street. These details speak volumes when observed. What others pass by without thought becomes a source of understanding, connection, and insight. This heightened perception allows you to anticipate outcomes, understand people more deeply, and navigate the world with subtle precision. The curse, in this sense, is also the compass of clarity. Intuition often follows closely behind awareness. When the mind is awake, it absorbs information beyond the conscious level, registering patterns and anomalies that escape ordinary notice. Decisions, judgments, and creative impulses emerge from this quiet observation, guiding you in ways that seem almost instinctual. While the rest of the world acts on convenience, habit, or surface reasoning, the awake mind operates with a deeper sense of coherence, informed by observation and reflection. This intuitive guidance is a gift of perception, a form of knowledge that bypasses logic yet carries undeniable truth. Restlessness, too, can be transformed into creativity. The ceaseless movement of thought, while tiring at times, becomes a forge for ideas, insights, and novel connections. Patterns emerge across seemingly unrelated experiences, and the mind begins to craft meaning from chaos. Art, innovation, and original thinking are often the children of restlessness, born from a mind that cannot sit idly in the shallow routines of life. The very energy that once felt like a burden can be redirected into creation, turning the curse into a source of productivity and beauty. Emotional depth is another hidden advantage. The awakened mind perceives the nuances of feeling, the undercurrents of human experience, and the subtle shifts in mood and intent. Empathy becomes more profound, understanding more nuanced, and relationships, though sometimes scarce, carry greater significance. While the ordinary may navigate life through surface interactions, the awake experience allows for richer connections when they occur. A moment of genuine understanding, a rare conversation that touches beneath the surface, becomes a treasure precisely because it is noticed and felt with clarity. Awareness also fosters resilience and foresight. To notice the small cracks, the inconsistencies, and the subtle warning signs is to prepare for challenges before they fully manifest. While others are caught off guard by life's unpredictability, the awake mind moves with anticipation, aware of possible outcomes and ready to adapt. This foresight is subtle and quiet, often invisible, but profoundly empowering. It allows for navigation through complexity with a steady hand, turning perception into strength rather than a source of anxiety. Even the capacity for appreciation is enhanced. Moments that might escape ordinary notice become vivid and significant. The curve of a leaf, the shifting colors of a sunset, the rhythm of footsteps in a quiet alley, the fleeting smile of a stranger. Life is richer, layered with texture, and infused with meaning that the unseeing mind overlooks. The awake person inhabits these moments fully, aware of their impermanence, their subtlety, and their intrinsic beauty. Even the mundane becomes profound when observed with attentiveness. The gift is not merely in perception, but in choice. Being awake provides the opportunity to act consciously, to make decisions informed by depth rather than surface impulse. It allows reflection, discernment, and selective engagement with the world. You can choose your connections, your actions, and your responses with deliberate care, guided by understanding rather than reaction. The curse of awareness, in this way, becomes a tool for empowerment. It is not merely a state of being. It is a way of navigating life with intention, clarity, and subtle influence. Acceptance of this gift requires a shift in perspective. The heaviness of consciousness does not disappear, nor should it. It is the shadow of insight. To embrace the gift hidden in the curse is to recognize that the weight of awareness carries knowledge, opportunity, and depth. It transforms the restless mind from a source of frustration into a guide, the solitude from a prison into a sanctuary, and the heightened perception from a burden into a lens for understanding the richness of life. Ultimately, the awake mind learns that what feels like a curse is inseparable from its own power. The sensitivity, the insight, the restlessness, the isolation, all are intertwined with rare privileges. Perception, intuition, emotional depth, creativity, foresight, and appreciation. To be awake is to live life with a richness that most cannot comprehend, to perceive the hidden layers, and to navigate reality with quiet mastery. The curse, when understood, reveals itself as a profound gift, offering a life that is complex, layered, and fully alive in a way that the sleeping world will never experience. There comes a point when the weight of being awake can no longer be resisted, when the restless energy, the ceaseless awareness, and the quiet isolation demand acceptance. To fight against it is to expend effort in a battle that cannot be won, for consciousness is not a burden to be shed, but a state of being to be embraced. Understanding this is the first step toward transforming what feels like a curse into a source of guidance, insight, and even peace. The restless mind, the heightened perception, and the emotional depth that once felt exhausting can, with acceptance, become allies rather than adversaries, teaching lessons that the unseeing world cannot provide. Acceptance begins with self-compassion. Recognizing that your mind operates differently, that your perception is sharper, and that your awareness is deeper than most is essential. The very traits that make social interactions challenging or moments of solitude heavy are also the traits that grant you clarity, intuition, and insight. Rather than resisting these qualities or wishing for simpler experience, you begin to acknowledge their value. There is relief in this realization, a subtle calm that arises when the constant struggle against your own nature is replaced with gentle acceptance. You are awake, and that is not a flaw. It is a rare gift. The restless energy of the mind can be channeled into practices that ease tension and foster clarity. Meditation, journaling, or quiet contemplation can provide spaces where thoughts are observed without judgment, where patterns and insights emerge naturally, and where the ceaseless internal dialogue becomes a source of guidance rather than distraction. By creating small rituals to honor the mind's activity, you allow it to flow without being consumed by it. Even simple acts, like walking alone with focused attention, observing the subtleties of your surroundings, or writing down fleeting thoughts, can transform restlessness into a productive, nourishing force. These practices are not about control or suppression. They're about alignment, creating a rhythm between the awakened mind and the pace of life. Choosing your social circle carefully becomes equally important. When you are awake, casual or superficial interactions can feel draining, leaving the mind restless and the heart unsatisfied. Yet, rare connections with those who perceive even a fraction of the same depth are profoundly rewarding. These are the friendships and relationships that carry resonance, where conversation reaches beyond the surface, where understanding exists without explanation, and where connection is felt in subtle, quiet ways. Learning to prioritize these interactions over routine socializing is part of embracing the awake state, finding nourishment in depth rather than distraction, and honoring your unique perception. Reflection, rather than distraction, becomes a key tool for navigating life. The awake mind benefits from periods of pause, where thoughts, emotions, and experiences are gently examined and integrated. Reflection is not about overthinking or spiraling into worry. It is about conscious engagement with life, understanding patterns, and learning from both successes and mistakes. By observing the layers of your own experience, you cultivate insight and resilience. Life is no longer merely a series of external events, but an interplay between perception, choice, and understanding. In these moments, the curse of awareness begins to reveal its hidden value, showing that introspection, once exhausting, is also empowering. Energy must also be channeled into creation. The restless mind, when harnessed, becomes a powerful engine for creativity and problem-solving. Ideas that emerge in the quiet of solitude, connections drawn from subtle observation, and insights gained from reflection can be transformed into action. Writing, art, strategy, or simply the careful shaping of daily choices are all outlets where awareness becomes productive rather than paralyzing. By giving restless energy a purposeful direction, the awake mind transforms tension into something tangible and meaningful. The curse is no longer a weight to bear. It becomes a tool for making life richer and more intentional. Letting go of comparison is another essential step. The awake mind is acutely aware of the world around it, often noticing the successes, comforts, and routines of others. This awareness can breed frustration or longing, yet embracing the curse requires turning attention inward rather than outward. The comparison that once amplified isolation now becomes a teacher, revealing what matters to you, guiding priorities, and clarifying values. By letting go of envy or judgment, the awake mind finds peace in authenticity, valuing the depth of perception over superficial validation and embracing a life measured by insight rather than conformity. Stillness, paradoxically, becomes a source of freedom. Even amidst ceaseless awareness, Moments of quiet observation allow the mind to release tension and recognize the beauty of existence in its simplest forms. Watching a sunset, listening to the wind, feeling the rhythm of one's own breath. These small acts anchor consciousness, creating a sanctuary in which restlessness is observed rather than resisted. The mind, once tormented by overactivity, finds balance in the deliberate cultivation of stillness, proving that awakening need not be exhausting when paired with intentional calm. Freedom, in this context, emerges not from escape but from understanding. To be awake is to perceive more fully, to notice subtle truths, and to navigate life with a clarity that many never experience. Accepting this freedom requires recognizing the interconnected nature of insight, solitude, and restlessness. Each element of the curse carries its own gift, and each challenge holds potential for growth. The awake mind is no longer a prisoner of perception, but a participant in a richer, deeper reality, capable of navigating complexity with insight, intention, and purpose. To live fully awake is to embrace the paradox itself. Awareness brings both burden and gift, restlessness and clarity, isolation and insight. By aligning with these truths, by channeling energy into reflection, creation, and meaningful connection, the curse becomes a source of guidance and empowerment. Life is experienced more vividly. Relationships carry deeper significance, and every observation, once heavy, now serves a purpose. The mind, sensitive and restless, becomes a compass, pointing toward subtle beauty, hidden patterns, and profound understanding. In this acceptance, the awake mind discovers serenity. The tension between observation and participation, between restlessness and calm, between isolation and connection, is no longer a struggle, but a dynamic flow. Each moment of awareness carries meaning, each insight holds value, and each choice becomes deliberate. To embrace the curse is to embrace the full spectrum of life's richness, understanding that being awake is not a flaw, but a rare capacity to perceive, reflect, and navigate the world with quiet mastery. The weight of awareness, once heavy, becomes a foundation upon which a life of depth, clarity, and subtle joy can be built.